All 50 waiters revealed their fear of the rich man. Until one inspiring black woman faced him. Clara stood behind the counter of the bustling downtown diner, a haven of grease-stained linoleum and the comforting scent of buttered pancakes. She had always believed this place was home, not just for her, but for the loyal patrons who came to share stories over steaming mugs of coffee. On a good day, the diner felt like a family living room, filled with laughter and warmth. But on busy afternoons when the wealthy businessmen strode in, the air shifted heavy, thick with unspoken dread. Whispers echoed among the waitstaff, a collective anxiety about the man who looked down on them with his sharp suits and condescending remarks. Clara felt their fears beneath her skin. The tension seeped into her soul, but she wore her infectious smile like armor. Each day, she reminded herself that their dreams mattered, even when they felt invisible. That day was different. The diner buzzed with the chatter of hungry patrons and the sizzling of the grill. Clara poured coffee and served meals, her heart racing as she sensed the businessmen enter. His presence sucked the light from the room, and the usual joy dissipated like steam into the air. Shadows fell across her colleagues' faces, tightening like nooses around their throats. As he barked orders, Clara gathered her colleagues' discomforts, a tapestry of unworthiness that had woven itself into their minds. But under her skin, something stirred. How many more times would they allow this? Her heart pounded harder, syncing with the rhythm of hope that swelled in her chest. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. She felt the weight of that moment, her choice to confront him beyond the fear that threatened to paralyze her. Mustering every ounce of courage, Clara approached the businessmen. She could hear the heartbeat of the diner, time itself seemed to pause. His cold blue eyes locked onto her with scorn. "Excuse me," Clara began, voice steady despite the storm roiling inside her. "What gives you the right to treat us like we are less than you?" Hers wasn't just a challenge, it was a proclamation of dignity for every hard-working soul reflected in the glassy eyes of her colleagues. The diner fell silent. Every eye was fixed on the confrontation, breaths held. Clara's words drifted through the air, igniting courage and vulnerability in equal measure. The tension crackled, disbelief and hope intermingling among the patrons. Would this moment be enough to shatter the cycle of disdain, or would it reinforce the barriers that divided them? Clara stood firmly, heartbeat racing, bracing for his response, her voice resonating louder than any chair squeak or clinking coffee cup behind her. The outcome remained uncertain as the diner held its breath, a fragile community waiting for change. In that split second hung Clara's resolve, a beacon for all the dreams that shimmered beneath the surface of their shared lives. What would happen next? The story was far from over. The businessman leaned back, smirking slightly, as if Clara had just amused him. His hands clasped behind his head, he surveyed the diner before resting his gaze on her. "And what exactly do you think you're going to achieve here?" he drawled, his voice dripping with contempt. His response hit Clara like a sledgehammer, but she wouldn't allow it to knock her down. The surrounding silence grew heavier, each passerby in the diner caught in the web of this moment. Clara could feel the weight of their eyes burning into her, urging her to hold her ground. "I think you need to understand that we're not here to be your servants," she shot back, her voice unwavering. A flicker of surprise crossed his face, like a small crack in his polished armor. For an instant, the facade of the untouchable rich man wavered, and Clara seized the opportunity. "We have families, dreams, and so much to offer. Your money doesn't define our worth." Murmurs rippled through the diner as patrons exchanged glances, astonishment blending with a newfound courage. Clara's colleagues began to straighten their spines, encouraged by her words. The feelings of insignificance that had once blanketed the diner started to lift. You think you're some sort of hero? He shot back, the edge creeping back into his voice. All it takes is a little push to remind you all of your place. But the tension in his voice was different now. Clara could sense that his confidence was beginning to unravel, exposed by the strength of her declaration. With every word that Clara spoke, she wielded her vulnerability like a sword. No one has to live in fear anymore. We deserve respect, just like anyone else. You can walk in here and your money might grant you a front row seat, but it doesn't give you the power to belittle us. A long beat of silence followed. The diner's atmosphere shifted again, thickening with a blend of trepidation and revelation. The way the other waiters hung on to her every word felt like a point of no return. Clara could see Margaret, a timid waitress known for her soft-spoken nature, nodding along with conviction. It was as if they were all collectively rising, shedding layers of doubt, and finally aligning in solidarity. Then came the unexpected. The businessman laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. You naive little girl. You think this means anything? I could buy this diner and all of you in a heartbeat. But Clara took a step forward, steadying herself. Then why haven't you? The strength of her simple question hung in the air. More murmurs, this time laced with a sense of unity and shared empowerment, rippled through the diner. The businessman faltered, his mask slipping further. Clara could see anger and confusion in his eyes, battling for control. You're making a big mistake, he warned, voice tightening, but the bravado was fading. No, Clara replied, the fire in her voice igniting something inside her and those around her. The mistake is thinking we're powerless. You've underestimated us for too long. As she stood there, Clara felt a weight lift not just for herself but for everyone in the diner. A part of her believed that this was a turning point, a ripple that could grow into a wave. She stood as a symbol of hope, courage, and resilience. But just as the atmosphere began to crackle with possibility, the businessman leaned forward, eyes narrowing. You really want to play this game? You have no idea what it will cost you, he warned, the threat lacing his words. Clara braced herself, her heart pounding. A challenge had been laid bare before her, one that could transform everything. The diner buzzed with anticipation, ready to witness a moment that could either bind them together or tear them apart. What Clara didn't expect was the revelation that would soon emerge, one that tied the fate of the diner and its beloved patrons to secrets long buried. Just how far was she willing to go to protect her family? This fight for dignity was only just beginning. Clara's heart raced as the businessman's threatening words hung in the air. She could feel the tension brewing around her, not just from their exchange, but from the collective worry of the entire diner. Suddenly, it was more than just about her, it was about everyone who had faced oppression, dismissal, and the weight of societal expectations. As the reality set in, her colleagues' once ghostly shadows at the edge of conversation began inching closer, their own fears melting away with each note of resolve she struck. Clara glanced around, meeting eyes filled with a mix of dread, admiration, and hope. I can't do this alone, she thought, silently urging them to step forward. Let us show him, whispered Margaret, the normally timid waitress, her small hands trembling with newfound strength. Clara nodded, feeling the same fire ignite in her colleagues as the businessman's smug demeanor cracked under the pressure of their unity. Stand with me. Clara encouraged, projecting her voice into the charged room. Together, we're stronger than any amount of money. It was a simple mantra, but it resonated like a rallying cry. One by one, the waiters stepped forward. Margaret, usually quiet, found her voice. We've worked hard, and we're tired of being stepped on. There was a ripple effect. Roger, whose insecurity had silenced him all too often, chimed in. Yeah. This diner is more than just a job. It's our home. As more voices joined in, Clara felt the surge of collective courage enveloping the diner. They weren't just fighting for survival or a paycheck anymore, but for dignity, respect, and the recognition they deserved. The sentiment electrified the air. Clara realized that while all her life she had spoken for them, today they were speaking for themselves. The businessman's expression darkened as he processed the shift. You think this act of rebellion will save you? Wishful thinking, he sneered, folding his arms as he leaned back. But Clara saw through his bravado. It was a show of weakness, his arrogance merely a mask for his vulnerability. No, she replied firmly, emboldened by the warmth of her friend's solidarity. It's about time we stop letting others define our worth. We're done being scared. Silence fell over the diner, thick and palpable, but it was no longer suffocating. Instead, it felt like the calm before a storm, an impending surge of righteousness. Clara glanced at Margaret, who was now holding her head high, pride glimmering in her eyes. Perhaps this was the real triumph. Just then, the door swung open. A figure stepped inside, an elderly man, familiar to many, the diner's original owner. His presence sent waves of recognition through Clara's heart. He had closed his diner long ago, but whispers of his legacy lived on. Just what have I walked into? His voice boomed lightly, eyes narrowing at the tension. Clara's heart skipped a beat. Had he come to witness their moment, or to side with the businessmen? Time stood still as the businessman looked to the old man, the last resort of authority slipping in his grasp. Clara took a deep breath, knowing this was the moment that could shift everything. We're standing up for what's right, she declared, locking eyes with the legendary figure. The diner held its breath, waiting for the response, for a spark of direction. Would the old man join them? Or would he turn his back, abandoning the very place he once fought for? Clara's stomach twisted with anticipation. The outcome hinged on this moment. Would they get the support they desperately needed, or would fear come creeping back in? The old man moved slightly closer, a flicker of recognition crossing his face. Clara could see the lines of age etched deeply around his eyes that had likely witnessed both the rise and fall of many tough battles. This was the man who had once poured his heart into the diner, turning it from just a rundown eatery into a community gathering space. What are you all doing? He asked, genuine curiosity mingling with concern. The businessman shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting back and forth, as if grasping for a way to maintain control of the situation. We're standing up. Clara's voice rang out again. We're done letting others dictate our worth. This diner is more than a job to us, it's our community, our family. As her words settled in the air, the old man raised an eyebrow, contemplating the scene before him. There was a palpable energy in the room, a wave of unity that soothed the stress lines on Margaret's face and ignited a fire in Roger's heart. It felt like Clara had lit a torch, illuminating a path for them all. Is that so? The old man mused, his voice steady yet gentle. You've grown so much since I last held the reins. I never thought I'd see the day when my employees would stand united like this. Clara's heart swelled with hope. We need your support. It would mean everything to us. The businessman scoffed, taking a step back as if expecting the old man to side with him. You can't possibly be taking their side, can you? These are just lowly waiters, serving food. A low murmur rippled through the crowd, the tension thickening. Clara could feel the heat rising from her core to her cheeks. Would the man see the value in the unity? Or would he turn around and abandon them just as easily as he had walked away years ago? The elderly owner straightened, his gaze unwavering, and spoke with surprising authority. Those lowly waiters, as you call them, have brought this diner back to life. They've made sacrifices and shown remarkable tenacity. You only see dollar signs, they see dreams and families. A wave of applause erupted in the diner, pulling Clara and her colleagues closer together. It felt like a blanket of solidarity wrapped around them, warming their spirits. Clara felt tears pricking at the corners of her eyes. She had expected this moment to be pivotal, but the rush of affirmation took her by surprise. The businessman, realizing he was losing ground, clenched his jaw. This is a mistake, you can't fight City Hall. You'll regret this. The old man stepped forward, his figure a strong barrier between the diner staff and the businessmen. Mistakes happen when people stay silent. For too long, people like you have dictated terms, but no more. It's time for voices like theirs to ring out. They deserve respect, and this diner deserves to thrive. Clara felt her heart pounding fiercely in her chest. It was happening. The tide was turning, and for the first time, she truly believed a change was possible. But as the businessman's expression darkened, she could see he wasn't about to walk away quietly. "What will you do now?" she asked, the words barely escaping her lips. "Something that hasn't crossed your mind, I bet," he warned. "This isn't over yet. This is just the beginning." The diner fell silent once more, the reality of his threat sinking in. Clara clasped her hands tightly, the uncertainty creeping back. They had found their voice, but would it be enough to withstand the oncoming storm? This moment felt critical, but she knew deep down that they were on the right path. Were they strong enough to weather whatever came next? The challenge hung heavily in the air, and she knew they had to be prepared for the battles ahead. Would they rise to meet them? Clara stood at the forefront, heart racing, as she processed the businessman's threat. His cold demeanor sent shivers down her spine. A looming fear crept in, whispering doubt into her mind. She glanced around the diner, looking into the faces of her coworkers. Each expression shared a mix of resolve and anxiety, but Clara could see sparks of courage in their eyes. They were all in this together. "Don't back down," she reminded herself, mentally shaking off the apprehension. Suddenly, the old man spoke up again, his voice a steady anchor amidst the brewing storm. "Listen, we're not here to fight against you," he declared. "We're here to stand for what's right. The community has put trust into this place, and it's time for that trust to be reciprocated." The businessmen scoffed again, but the weight of the old man's words hung in the air like a challenge. Clara's heart clenched with the need to act, to keep pushing forward even as uncertainty threatened to overtake her. "What do you propose?" The businessman sneered, crossing his arms tightly. Clara took a step forward, adrenaline surging within her. "We want fair wages, better working conditions, and respect. We're more than servers, we're the heartbeat of this diner." She could feel empowerment radiating from her core as she spoke. The warmth of her colleagues' solidarity bolstered her confidence. Behind her, Margaret spoke up, her voice trembling but defiant. "We have families to feed and dreams to chase. We won't let anyone take that away from us." A wave of murmurs rippled through the diner, a chorus of agreement rising, one voice building upon another. Clara felt the energy surge, turning the air electric. The businessman shifted, his confidence visibly waning. "You're playing a dangerous game here," he warned, but his tone was no longer combative. There was a crack, a glimpse of insecurity behind his bravado. "No, we are showing strength," Clara shot back, fighting the urge to falter. "It's time to face the truth. We deserve better." The old man nodded firmly, adding, "And we will fight for that. Together." His eyes locked on the businessman, unyielding. But just as Clara thought the tide was turning completely, the diner's front door swung open with a jangle of bells. A newcomer stepped inside, a young woman dressed in a crisp uniform with a name tag reading Zoe. The nervous energy of the room turned to curiosity. "Sorry I'm late," Zoe called out, just as the tension thickened again. Her bright smile faltered when she saw the scene unfolding. "What's happening?" Clara felt a surge of hope at Zoe's arrival, as though an ally had just walked through the door. "We're standing up for our rights," Clara explained, her voice rising amidst the bustling energy. Zoe's eyes widened, taking in the tension, the old man's resolve, and the uncertain businessman. Without missing a beat, she pulled off her apron and marched to the front. "Then count me in. We can't let him push us around." Cheers erupted from her fellow workers, breathing life into a fresh wave of determination. The businessman's face turned pale, he hadn't counted on this rallying spirit. The old man turned to Clara, the corners of his mouth lifting slightly. Looks like you've inspired more than just your friends. Just then, the businessman smirked, regaining a hint of his earlier bravado. This is far from over. You think you can just rally together and demand what you want? Better think again. Clara felt her heart pound once more, the stakes higher than ever. They had started this rebellion, but was it enough? The idea of unity hung in the air like an untested promise, and Clara understood they were facing their most significant challenge yet. Could they all push through to victory or to defeat? Behind her, the murmurs of supportive voices strengthened her resolve, fueling a fire in her belly. She would stand her ground. She would fight for her family. But as the businessman's looming threat lingered, she wondered what would he do next. The diner buzzed with an electricity that Clara had never felt before. She could almost taste the hope in the air. It was like a surge of adrenaline pounding through her veins, pushing her forward. She raised her chin, determined to meet the businessman's piercing gaze. Do you think you can intimidate us? She called out, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. She could feel her co-workers rallying behind her, their unity igniting a fire that he had clearly underestimated. The businessman locked eyes with Clara, a mixture of annoyance and disbelief flashing across his features. You don't know who you're dealing with, girl, he said, his tone laced with arrogance that seemed to bounce off Clara's resolve. Clara stepped closer, her heart pounding as the adrenaline battled against any lingering fear. You think just because you wear a suit and drive a fancy car that you have all the power? You're mistaken. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the diner. Margaret stood a bit taller, nodding as she echoed Clara's sentiment. We're the reason this place runs. You can't throw money at us and expect gratitude. Our respect is earned, not bought. The businessman's face hardened, anger flickering behind his eyes. I could shut this place down with a snap of my fingers. Do you really want to risk that? The threat hung over them, but Clara could feel the support growing. She glanced around, catching Zoe's fierce expression and the steady gaze of the old man, his eyes shining with unwavering determination. Do it. We'll just open up somewhere else. It won't be the last time we serve food. A round of silent awe passed through the group, each person gathering strength from the words. The businessman blinked, taken aback, seen for the first time not as a puppet master but as a man standing against a wall of solidarity. Is that what you think? He barked, regaining composure. You're too small, too insignificant. You think a few voices will change my mind? But as he spoke, it became clear that his bravado was faltering. Clara could sense the movement behind her, a collective cohesion that echoed strength in numbers. She took a daring step forward, heart racing. We're not just a few voices. We're your workers, your neighbors, and your customers. We are the heartbeat of this community, and you'll listen to us whether you like it or not. The diner erupted in applause. People clapped, shouted, and cheered, creating a tide of energy that rolled over the businessman, drowning out his sharp retorts. It was stunning, a wave of resilience and grit that Clara had never witnessed before in herself or anyone else. In that moment, a young server named Eddie shouted, "We need to take a stand. Let us not wait for him to decide our fates." Yes. Clara shouted back, caught up in the spirit of the crowd. Let us form a union. Let us make our voices official. The thought struck a chord, like a missed heartbeat finally detected. People began to nod in agreement, hope shining anew in their eyes. It was a dangerous path, but in that instant, it felt right. They could begin to construct something bigger than any one of them. Union or not, I'll crush your little dreams, the businessman countered, his voice cracking ever so slightly. Clara could see the sweat beginning to bead at his temples, a sign of the pressure weighing on him. This was it. They were awakening something deep within their community, courage, spirit, and the hope of a rallying cry that could shake the very foundations of their humble diner. But just as the thrill of their empowered unity swelled, the door swung open once again. This time, it was the local news team, cameras in hand. Clara's heart skipped a beat. Exposure could mean everything. As the lights began to flash, Clara glanced back at her friends and coworkers. Were they ready? Were they prepared to stand tall and speak their truth in the spotlight? Here's your chance to be heard. The news anchor shouted, stepping into the diner. Clara's breath caught in her throat. This was the moment she had dreamed of, the moment to truly fight for her community. But would they all rally together like they intended, or would they crumble under the glare of the cameras? With every inch that the anchor approached, Clara felt the weight of her decision amplify. This was only the beginning, and not just for them, but for a movement that could change everything. Would they fully commit to this path before them? The news anchor's voice cut through the cacophony, commanding attention as bystanders turned toward the cameras, excitement and trepidation swelling in Clara's chest. Everybody, please. We need to hear your voices. The anchor gestured insistently, her enthusiasm infectious. Clara's heart raced, matching the pulse of urgency that surrounded her. She took a deep breath and stepped to the front, feeling the weight of her coworkers' hopes resting on her shoulders. Clara. Eddie's voice jolted her focus. You should talk first. You started this. He stepped back, eyes sparkling with encouragement. She nodded, feeling a mixture of nerves and empowerment surge through her. Here was their opportunity. She could feel the television cameras zeroing in on her, their blinking lights radiant and unforgiving. But this wasn't about her. It was about everyone that depended on this diner, the workers, the customers, the community. In that instant, Clara's resolve solidified. She squared her shoulders and faced the camera. My name is Clara, and I work here at this diner. Today, we stand against threats and intimidation. We're tired of being pushed around by people who don't understand our lives and struggles. We are more than just cogs in your machine. Her voice rang out, steady and firm. Applause erupted, and Clara could see the faces of her coworkers shining with pride. A wave of warmth cascaded over her, a reminder that they were all in this together. People like this businessman think they can come into our community, take what they want, and leave us broken, she continued, glancing defiantly at the businessman, whose expression had turned to a dark scowl. But we've had enough. We deserve better jobs, fair wages, and respect. The crowd erupted again, voices merging into a harmonious chorus of agreement. Clara's heart swelled as she sensed the faith in her words was palpable. This wasn't just a protest, it was a burgeoning revolution fueled by shared struggles. Margaret stepped up next. This diner isn't just a job for us. It's where we've shared our lives, laughs, and dreams. You can't just mess with that. More and more voices chimed in, each one stronger than the last. Zoe spoke about her late nights balancing school and work while serving customers with a smile, and Eddie shared how he put his whole self into every plate he served, just to make ends meet. Each testimony stitched together a larger tapestry of bravado, binding them in collective purpose. Sure, the businessman finally scoffed, struggling to regain some semblance of control. You think you can win a battle against someone with real power? But as Clara looked around, she saw something he clearly couldn't comprehend. They weren't just employees. They were neighbors, friends, family. The laughter and tears they had shared knitted them together in a bond he could never break. Power isn't just money, Clara challenged, her words ringing through the diner. It's the strength of a community that refuses to back down. It's the love we have for one another that makes us unstoppable. This isn't over, and you can't threaten us into silence. As she spoke, the reality of their situation hung in the air, heavy but electrifying. Clara felt a sense of purpose. This was only the beginning. The anchor wrapped up the segment, and as the cameras began to retreat, the tension snapped, replaced by joyous shouts and celebration. Clara felt elation course through her veins. They had made an impact. But unknown to them, lurking just beyond the diner door, a shadow watched someone who held greater power than they had imagined. Clara's skin prickled with the feeling of being observed. Who was this mystery figure? Did they threaten the fragile unity that had just blossomed? In that moment, her excitement simmered into a cautious realization: they weren't just fighting a businessman, they were standing against an entire system that favored the rich over the working class. The world outside had taken notice. What would happen next? Would they find the courage to face bigger challenges still lie ahead? Clara clenched her jaw, determination flooding her every thought. They had begun to raise their voices, but was it enough? The crowd buzzed with energy as Clara stepped back, her heart still thrumming from the adrenaline of her speech. She could still hear the echo of her words swirling through the air, buoyed by the applause and the shouts of her friends and co-workers. But underneath that joy lurked a palpable tension. The shadow that loomed just outside the diner felt like a dark cloud overhead, threatening to rain on their parade. Eddie pulled Clara aside, a worried frown marring his usually cheerful face. "You think we did enough?" he asked, glancing nervously toward the door where the figure had disappeared. "I don't know," Clara admitted, shaking her head. "But we have to keep pushing. If we stop now, we let them win." Before they could brainstorm their next move, Margaret rejoined them, her face flushed with excitement. "The group wants to keep the momentum going. What if we hold a meeting to strategize? Show them we're serious?" "Sounds like a plan," Clara replied, her spirits lifting. "The more of us involved, the stronger we'll be. We can't let fear hold us back." As they gathered everyone and began to discuss their next steps, the atmosphere shifted. Energized voices filled the diner, ideas flowed freely, and laughter occasionally broke through the tension. It felt like they were building something together, not just fighting against an adversary, but crafting a vision for their future, one where the diner remained a cornerstone of their community. Clara felt her resolve harden into something solid and fierce. But just as optimism bloomed, Clara's phone buzzed violently against the table. It was a message alert from the news community: diner faces lawsuit from local business mogul. She felt her stomach drop, suddenly feeling vulnerable again. They had spoken out, but now the backlash was real. This was the test ahead of them, the moment they would have to confront not just the businessman, but the entire system he represented. "Did you see this?" Clara held her phone, her hands shaking slightly. The group went silent, eyes glued to the screen. "Why are they doing this?" Zoe asked quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. It was the question that hung heavily in the air. "Because we threatened him," Clara said, voice stronger now. "And sometimes threatening someone can bring out their worst side. But we can't let this scare us." But the doubts crept into her mind. What if the lawsuit was more than they could handle? What if it crushed the community they had fought to unite? Each person around her was counting on her to lead them. Clara suddenly felt the pressure weighing heavily. "We have to rally," Eddie said, stepping forward. "Let us turn this around. We can bring in supporters, organize a fundraiser, anything. We need to make sure everyone knows this diner means something." His enthusiasm was contagious, igniting the fire that danced in Clara's chest. "Yes. Let us make some noise, gather signatures, do whatever it takes. If we stand together, they can't silence us." In that moment, Clara realized the importance of their fight. It wasn't just protecting their diner. It was about standing up against the unfairness that had plagued so many lives in their community for too long. They were stronger together, and they had to prove it. As they formulated plans, Clara glanced out the window. The sun was setting, casting a fiery glow over the diner. But it was still there, dark and forbidding at the edge of the parking lot, an emblem of the battle they now faced. When they finished their meeting, Clara took a deep breath, filled with a resolve that seemed to stretch far beyond her. But another reality threatened as she thought of that figure outside, the one she couldn't shake from her mind. Who were they? What kind of power did they possess? The answer felt closer than ever, but terrifying too. She could almost feel the storm tightening around them. The battle for the diner had begun, but what awaited them on the other side of this struggle? As they all left the diner together, the gathering dark formed a shadow that felt almost alive, hinting at the challenges yet to come. Clara's heart raced, excitement mingling with fear. They had started something now, could they finish it? The following day dawned with a shroud of grey clouds looming in the sky, as if the weather itself was mirroring Clara's apprehension. She stood in her kitchen, the smell of bacon and coffee filling the air, but the warmth was lost on her. Every sip of her lukewarm coffee reminded her of the storm brewing outside, and not just the one in the sky. Eddie arrived early as they had planned. The diner would need to make a statement, and a fundraiser was the first step. He looked ready to tackle anything, but Clara could see the tension in his eyes. "You okay?" she asked, trying to pull an encouraging smile. "Yeah, just thinking about the rally. We need to get people motivated," Eddie replied, his voice laced with determination yet tinged by anxiety. Clara nodded, trying to match his enthusiasm. "We will. We'll show them the diner is more than just a business, it's our community, our family." The words felt hollow, even to her, as doubt gnawed at her thoughts. As patrons began to filter in, many still groggy from their morning routines, Clara noticed a shift in the atmosphere. The usual chatter was replaced with whispers. Eyes darted nervously toward the door, anticipating trouble. Something was in the air, and it was heavy with unspoken fears. "Hey, Clara. Did you hear about the protest down at Main Street?" A regular named Joe said, wiping his hands on a napkin. "They're trying to hold people accountable, you know." "Yeah, we need to get in on that," Clara replied, hoping to gather support from the community. Every voice matters. But she could feel it, the trepidation among her friends. They were together in this fight, yet at that moment, the weight of the lawsuit hung thick around them. As word spread, a mixed bag of emotions filled the diner. Some customers were bold, raising their fists in solidarity, while others sat back, hesitant to get involved. Clara decided to address this unease head-on. She climbed atop a chair, drawing the room's attention. "Listen, everyone," Clara called out, trying to inject passion into her voice. "We are more than this diner. We are a community. If we don't stand up now, we let fear win. We can't let one man dictate our future. Who else with me?" A few voices joined in, but many people looked uneasy. "Clara, what if he retaliates?" Zoe's voice trembled from the back of the diner, uncertainty lacing her words. "What if we lose everything?" Clara felt like the ground had shifted beneath her. She was supposed to inspire confidence, but fear was contagious. "I know it's scary," she replied, her own heart racing. "But what's the alternative? We can't just sit back and let him bully us. It's not just about us, it's about everyone." Clara, a longtime waitress with a fierce spirit, yelled, "We're fighting for our families. For our way of life." The room erupted into murmurs of agreement, the momentum gradually shifting. That small spark ignited the crowd. They began brainstorming ideas for the rally. Clara could feel her hope rekindling with each passing moment. But just as they reached a crescendo of excitement, the door swung open with a force that made everyone jump. In strode the dark figure that Clara had sensed earlier, the man she couldn't shake from her mind. There he was, with an air of authority that silenced the diner. A deep, unsettling chill swept through the room as everyone turned to face him. "Clara," he called her name, slow and deliberate, as if savoring the moment. "I hear you're making quite a fuss over this little diner. I came to offer you a chance to reconsider." His words hung heavily in the air, eliciting gasps of disbelief and panic from the crowd. Clara felt her heart pounding in her chest. The stakes had just been raised. It was clear now, he wasn't just the shadow outside, he was the storm they had to confront. Would Clara's courage rise to meet it? "Let us show him what we're made of," Clara whispered, rallying her strength as she prepared to face the looming threat head-on. But as she stepped forward, a question loomed larger than the figure in front of her. Would she be enough to lead this fight? The diner was still as Clara stood firm in front of the imposing figure. The businessman's eyes bore into her, a smirk dancing across his lips like he already held all the cards. She felt the gathering of her colleagues behind her, their breath hitching in unison, anxiety mingling with hope. Reconsider? What is there to reconsider? Clara's voice rang out, steady and unwavering. You think your threats will intimidate us? We are not afraid of you anymore. The tension in the diner felt electric, every heartbeat pulsating with relatability and anticipation. The old man, who had offered strength the day before, stood at the back, his gaze fixed on Clara, their leader in a battle for dignity. He believed in her. They all did. You think this is bravery, Clara? This is nothing but foolishness, he replied, his tone dripping with condescension. The murmuring crowd felt heavy under his scrutiny, but Clara could feel courage rushing through her veins. Clara stepped closer. It's brave to stand when faced with oppression. You've underestimated not just me, but everyone in this diner. We all deserve respect. Our lives matter. With each word, the air between them thickened, a palpable mixture of fear and resolve surging within the space. A few clients around the din started to nod, encouragement lighting up their faces. The businessman chuckled, a harsh, empty sound that reverberated through the diner's walls. And what do you think will happen if you keep this up, huh? You'll just find yourselves out of work. You'll starve. This is naive, Clara. But behind Clara, the voices grew louder, chipping away at the businessman's confidence like waves against rocks. Eddie shouted, we won, to be silenced. We stand together. The defiance bristled through the crowd, a reminder that they were not just workers, they were a community. Clara felt the warmth of solidarity wash over her, fortifying her spine. You can't take away the values we've built. You think you can own our dignity? You're wrong. Now, his smirk faltered, just for a moment, as if a crack was forming. Clara seized the opportunity. Ignoring the fear that clawed at her heart, she pressed on, we will not succumb to threats. Instead, we will shine a light on this injustice. We're going to fight for what we deserve. The applause rang out anew, each clap fueling her confidence. Clara felt like a conductor of hope, leading the symphony of voices until they crescendoed into a symphony of defiance. Mark my words, I will not lose this battle, the businessman spat, but Clara could see the uncertainty flickering in his eyes. It was a tiny victory, but it was felt throughout the diner. Just then, the old man stepped forward, taking advantage of the moment. This diner was built brick by brick with love and community. And it will continue to thrive, as long as we stand together. Those words struck a chord, reinforcing the collective strength that had started to develop. We will not let our families down or our dreams fade, Clara added, her voice clearer, louder. This is our home. We'll have a rally this Saturday to raise awareness. Let us gather everyone. Neighbors and friends, let us fight the lawsuit together and show we're not backing down. Cheers erupted around her as the camaraderie surged with every shout of determination. The businessman's face soured, watching as people rallied around Clara. That's not how this works, girl, he countered, his tone hardening again. You really think a few claps and chants will change anything? Clara held his gaze. It's not just any chant. It's our voice. A voice that speaks against injustice. You can try to scare us, but you can't snuff out our light. As the battle for the diner played out, something beautiful emerged from the dark. Clara's heart swelled as she realized their picnic table of losses had turned into a sturdy table of victories, each small stand contributing to a greater purpose. They, together, had become a force. The businessman took a sharp breath, and Clara could see his facade starting to crack. For all the power he assumed he had, he was losing grip. As he stepped back towards the door, his swagger replaced by frustration, Clara couldn't help but smile. They had awakened the spirit of unity. You'll regret this, Clara, he shot back, his voice darker than before. This isn't over. But with her heart full and hope surged, Clara called loudly, then bring it on. We're ready. The applause echoed through the diner, roaring like a vibrant community, no longer held hostage by fear. The businessmen stepped outside, but Clara knew it was no victory yet, he remained a threat lurking in the shadows. Yet she chose to focus on the light that the community was now shining. That evening, as plans for the rally took shape, Clara stood close to her old friend, the elderly diner owner. The two exchanged a knowing glance, the warmth in his eyes a beacon of hope. They would rally people together, give a voice to those who felt unheard. 2 nights later, the diner transformed into a planning hub, with everyone sharing ideas, laughter, and strategies. Dreams that had seemed impossible flickered to life like candles basking in the warmth of love. Clara knew this was their moment. It was the beginning of change, not just for the diner, but for themselves and every community touched by their courage. The rally day dawned bright and clear, perfect conditions for a stand that would echo through the ages. Clara took her place at the front of the diner, excitement thrumming in her veins, as supporters began gathering. Together, we fight. Together, we grow, she repeated, the mantra of their movement, feeling each word sink into her soul like an oath. And as they stepped into the crowd of supporters, Clara found herself glancing around, taking in every determined face. Fear no longer shadowed her heart, courage pulsed strong as they intertwined their fates. This was more than just a fight, it was a renaissance, painted with colors of hope. As the rally unfolded, Clara realized they were not just facing a businessman, they were building a movement. And as long as they stood together, voices loud, hearts beating in time, nothing could silence their dreams again. The resolve of a community ignited that day, and Clara felt certain they would reshape their destiny. In unity, they found the strength to rise above and to reclaim their future. And it was just the beginning. Don't miss out on the next chapter of their journey. So, you need to subscribe now to our channel. This is the moment to show your support by leaving a like to feed the algorithm. Also, comment below your reactions and thoughts about this emotional ending. And don't forget to share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible transformation. Don't wait not even one more second. True fans understand the importance of supporting this channel through these actions. Your involvement means everything.